Gary Paull, Backcountry Gary, thank you for spending time with us today.
Hi there.
Before we take on this beautiful hike, where are we, by the way?
We are at the Middle Fork Snoqualmie Trailhead just outside of North Bend, Washington, USA.
You got it. Well, before we take a little walk with Gary, and he hasn't been up here for a while, right? It's been a while since you've been up this.
Yeah.
There's been some improvements to the trail and everything else, but we'll do a little GPS location for this parking lot for those that want to come out and enjoy this. But before we take off, you brought some goodies, and I would just love quickly to take a look at a few of these things with you, Gary. So you have some personal history with some of these authors, and let's just kind of take a look and look at that.
This is the well-used, now probably 50-year-old Roots and Rocks book.
Okay, wow.
And by Dwight Crowder and Roland Tabor. Mm-hmm. And the other one from the Mount Challenger Quadrangle.
Okay.
Geologic map of the area.
Look at you. Looks familiar.
Looks familiar. Yep. And of course that's nice there from...
Oh, let me get that.
Roland and Ralph.
Nice. Yeah, we certainly want some. Let me come around the other shoulder. We got a little bit too much sun. Yes, this is a great teaser into your history and how you happen to know some of these cats. But I like just this. This is a nice kind of connector between your career and a little bit of what I do, and then the audience. Some of the folks know some of these publications. I don't know this one.
This one probably is what started it.
Okay.
And I found this when I was about, I can't remember, 13 or 14 in a bookstore in Sun Valley, Idaho. It was brand new paperback version, right after the creation of North Cascade Park. And we were in Sun Valley. My dad was in shipping. And we were there for the annual Pea and Bean Convention. And it's how they all get together and talk about all the issues related to shipping peas and beans. And
right.
My brother and I were out ice skating outside and drinking water and eating tacos or whatever. And went in the bookstore, found this, and I had road maps, because I was looking at road maps, right?
Yeah.
And the road maps had these interesting things on them, these big blank areas, and it said things like Mount Logan 9080, Glacier Peak 10541. And I was familiar with Snoqualmie Pass from growing up skiing up there, and
right.
3,000 feet, 6,000 feet. So I was really mystified what all that was, these higher elevations. And I found this thing, and this, oh look, there's a Polly Dyer autograph in there.
Oh, goodness.
But yeah, this kind of got me all excited, and I probably read through it about 4 times between Sun Valley, Idaho, and our home. And it's like, I think I got to go see these things. And then I found this guy by Tom Miller, and probably a lot of the climbers out there are familiar with this.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure what all that is for sure. Yeah, I think. Yeah, there we go. Ran into Tom there, and he got him to take a look at that. But these are all black and whites from the 50s of some of the big peak areas up in the North Cascades, and it's like, wow, that's cool. I got to go up there. I did. I got to go up there. I haven't.
So, I mean, we're back in the I don't want to date you too much, your 60s or 1970s?
This is all happening probably in 1970 about.
Okay. So some of these key publications really inspired you to pick a career.
Well, more than anything, traffic noise.
Right. Oh, a little...
Well,
we suppose the helicopter's doing that.
Wasn't road noise anyway.
No, that's right.
And then there's this one on Alpine Lakes, and this was crucial to the creation of the Alpine Lakes Wilderness, and
Boy, you are connected. What the heck's going on here? You know all these guys or met
Well,
these people?
yeah, I kind of met these people. So I was very involved with this when it was happening in the early mid 1970s.
Okay.
I worked pretty hard on alpine lakes and the designation of the wilderness, which is one of those things. In hindsight, it's almost be careful what you wish for, you might get it.
What do you mean?
Well, you got it, and then it's like I had no idea. I'd wind up being a manager of it with the various issues, which are all very worth. I mean, it's totally worth it. It's just been exciting the whole way. And I worked on the 1984 wilderness bill also as a private citizen.
Okay.
So I spent time in D.C. with folks back there, going around to congressionals.
This is working out perfectly. This is just a little appetizer for us to then talk on the trail.
And then I just thought I'd throw this in.
Yeah. A little typewriter here.
This is a typewriter, and where's the title page? Oh yeah, there you go. So that's how I got out of college, because I couldn't decide what the heck I would do, and I was in botany, I was in forestry, geography, atmospheric science, and I just had more geology credits than anything by kind of a long shot, and it was time to get out of there. And so I wound up making an interdisciplinary degree and wrote it on a field area that I'd been working in with the Forest Service out of Chelan.
Okay.
So I knew I'd learned a lot about that, so I thought, well, I can write about that, and then maybe they'll let me out.
At the University of Washington?
At the University of Washington.
This bridge must have a story.
This bridge has quite a story. And it was, the arch was installed in 1993, and the decking, and it took a couple more years before the decking was completed, but the bridge was designed by volunteers, and the guy that was the volunteer was into big arched things, like designing the old Kingdom roof, the Woodinville 405 interchange, things like that. And he provided that design, and our partners, including the Middle Fork Outdoor Recreation Coalition, they worked the deal out with Weyerhaeuser for these beautiful beams. And so those are all delivered to the site, and they were flown in by a heavy lift helicopter. And one of the scarier things, I've been around watching that happen, is they put these big forks in on either side, each one, if I remember right, weigh around 11,000 pounds. And then the big central beam was flown in separately and placed with no tolerance on either end. And it was pretty darn terrifying, because the ship had to be almost empty of gas because it was so heavy. But that worked out. And
so that's an example of your role. You're probably a role that changed over your career, but you were kind of responsible or trying to work out the logistics of all this
one of the
stuff?
things I probably did the most of is I was kind of, people would ask sometime, basically, what do you do? And I said, well, I'm a mid-level money-grubbing bureaucrat. So I'd be running around trying to find funding for the various pieces of this. And then the people on the Ranger District I worked with really closely and had more direct involvement with some of the day-to-day stuff in the building of the trail.
Wow. Middle Fork of the Snoqualmie. What a perfect morning this is.
Yeah, and I like to, I was often calling this the Bazillion bolt bridge, because all these pieces have just bolts and more bolts to hold it together. And I believe the bridge deck was just redone in the last couple of years. Again, volunteers became a bigger and bigger part of all the work that gets done out in the forest. And the Backcountry Horsemen, I think, Washington Trails Association all worked to put on a new deck on the bridge.
Well, that's a good jumping off point. How can you summarize your career? When did you start with all of this management of land and your different roles, and were you with one organization the whole time?
I started working on a Forest Service pre-sale crew in Oregon in 1975 as a seasonal. I worked there for 2 years.
Okay.
And fascinating stuff. Just get the topographic map, you'd go out in the woods, the forester would tell you where you needed to go for stand exams, and you do plots on spaces, or we did a lot of skyline profiles, so you had your clinometer and your tape, and you would run up these hills to determine whether logging systems could operate with skylines across the hillsides.
You're just a college kid now? This is like a summer
job?
job?
Yeah, summer job. It was great.
Okay.
Dale, Oregon.
Okay.
And so we're on the edge of the German chocolate cake down there. And one of the fascinating things for me was that I'd go out and do stuff on the weekends and go up, and it's like, well, this isn't German chocolate cake. What the heck is this green rock stuff up here? And there's gold mining, dredging that went on the North Fork John Day River up there. Fascinating. And we did a lot of different things. We did some little firefighting. We did all sorts of the timber jobs. So a lot of variety. Then I worked at I wanted to work up in the Cascades, and took a volunteer ranger job at Chelan and wound up staying there for 11 years. The first 3 months or 2 months or so were volunteer, and that was all in the backcountry, and doing trail work, doing recreation site inventories. And during that time, you got to do so much stuff. In the off season, you did various brush disposal. So you'd be just chainsawing up logs and stacking them up. We did a lot of prescribed burning, which was a lot of fun. And got out of hand a couple times.
But you're a volunteer?
No, I was getting paid.
Okay.
I only had to volunteer for about a month or so. I wound up getting a job offer at Cle Elum. And then Chelan figured out that, okay, we can figure out how to pay this guy for the rest of the summer. So then I wound up staying there for 11 seasons.
11 seasons with the Forest Service?
With the Forest Service.
Got it. And then after 11 seasons, you jump to something else?
I jumped to a full-time job as a trail manager on the Darrington Ranger District. And I did that for about 4 years, and then I got a job in the supervisor's office at the time it was in Mount Lake Terrace, and that covered the wilderness program and the trail program for the forest from Mount Rainier up to Canada. And so I got involved with all the different trail projects that were going on that people know, like Bandera Mountain, Skookum Flats, Mount Pilchuck, Lake Serene, Yellow Aster Butte, Baker Lake, on and on.
Still with Forest Service?
All with the Forest Service, yeah.
And just to finish your just kind of thumbnail sketch of your timeline, did you officially retire then from the Forest Service?
Yes, I officially retired in September 30th, at the end of the fiscal year of 2017.
Okay. Where do you want to go?
We're going to go left.
Okay.
There's like 15 or 20 cars parked at the trailhead here.
On a Thursday morning? At 10:30 in the morning?
Yeah, that's not something you would have seen 20 years ago.
So what happened starting 10 years ago? Do you have a pet idea of why this has exploded?
Well, social media, I think, has a lot to do with it.
That's my answer too.
And I think that...
hang on just a second.
Muffler Boy.
What is up?
Okay.
Yeah, it's maybe as simple as the power of a snapshot on Instagram or something, and somebody goes, where is that? I got to go see that. I didn't know that existed. And you know, those 55 hikes books, you know, from the Mountaineers or something 30 years ago, that was a step in the right direction to make this accessible. But I think I agree with you. I think it's the social media thing.
Yeah, I think that, and then people started seeing more people like themselves out doing some of these things that maybe didn't think they could before, and it's like, oh, well, it's okay for this person that looks like this to go out. It must be okay for me. I should try that.
Can you help us? What are we looking at here?
We're looking at Mount Garfield, which is kind of splits the Taylor River and the Middle Fork Snoqualmie in a big way.
Huh. And what kind of rock you think?
Well, what the map says.
That's all we can go on.
It's tertiary volcanics. breccia, welded tufts, some flows, I guess.
My God. I got to look into that some more. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, because I think I always assumed it was part of the Snoqualmie batholith, and if
Yeah.
you look at the rocks down by the river, a lot of them are kind of light colored and
Right,
granite.
right. Yeah, that's what I assumed we'd be in the whole morning, but your map says otherwise. All right.
Yeah, it looks like granite to me.
Yeah. So when you did those summer jobs as a college kid with the Forest Service, did you have a plan? Did you hope to have a whole career with the Forest Service, or
No.
just one? Please go ahead. Yep. Sorry about that.
Howdy. Oh, did I know you?
Yes, sir.
Ah, hey Alex, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
You gonna go
Oh,
fix
are you guys
things?
filming something today?
Yeah.
Yep. It's one of my colleagues, Alex Weinberg.
Nice
Works
to
at
meet
North
you.
Bend for the Forest Service.
This is Nick. He's the assistant corridor manager.
All
started
right.
A couple of years ago.
Good to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Your colleague
Very nice
was-
to meet you. Oh yeah, I've heard your name a lot.
So is that a guy that you used to work with?
Oh
that-
yeah, I
Uh-huh.
worked with him. Good guy.
Is he doing currently similar stuff to what you were doing in the last decade?
He's
or?
doing similar stuff to what I was doing at the Ranger District level.
Okay.
He works with all these partner groups down here and coordinates, or as much as you can herd cats,
Sure.
gets them together and gets a lot of grant money to help facilitate some of these projects.
What have been the overarching kind of goals of your organization during your career?
Well, I think it shifted quite a bit, because obviously timber was a big part of that,
Uh-huh.
and that all started sliding away a bit and going into more kind of what we'd call ecosystem management, where you would get you'd be cutting trees more for a purpose other than just commercially. I think maybe as a general statement. But on the Mount Baker Snoqualmie forest here where I work, where there was probably taken 250 million board feet, mostly old growth, out of the forest.
During your time?
Yeah, during
Wow.
my time, up until boom, about 91, and it went from that basically to zero. And it's been kind of going between 0 up to 10, maybe 20 million, so just a fraction, and most of that's been in thinning. And the other part of that was that all those big logs, they brought a lot of money into the forest. And so the amount of money available to kind of cover overhead, vehicles, all that stuff, went way down, and you had to pay for that more out of other sources. And then Congress, in its wisdom, decided to cut budgets for things like trails and wilderness dramatically in the mid-90s. And it's like, well, now what?
Right.
I mean, I know the one year we had a 4-person trail crew for the whole north end of the forest, which is a little bigger than Glacier National Park, with more trails and more trail use. There were 4, and kind of the upside of that was, it's like, well, if you guys want to, you can put together a user fee program. And so we worked with some folks down in Oregon and came up with the Northwest Forest Pass
Yeah.
program.
Yeah.
And that started helping immediately to kind of bring some money back in that would do work out in the field, like, well, maybe cut this log, but it might be volunteers. But the volunteers, at some extent, they're getting reimbursed for doing all the recruiting, because it used to be the Forest Service would do the recruiting of the volunteers and set up all these work projects, and
Yeah.
that was a thing that was really difficult for me. You'd set up a project on your weekend,
Uh-huh.
and it'd be raining and nobody'd show up. Or you'd set it up and then on the weekend be sunny and nobody'd show up. Or then people would show up and you didn't have enough tools or whatever, and we were able to start figuring out how to have the volunteer organizations do the recruiting, do the training, and so forth. And that was the Washington Trails Association was particularly adept
Okay.
at doing that, kind of keeping it going and expanding the number of trails. I mean, though we've lost quite a few trails in the mountains in the national forest just because of the difficult of maintenance and everything, and roads to get to them. We've lost quite a few, particularly in the last 20 years.
Really?
And but at the same time, and the budgets have gone down for that kind of work in the forest, but there's been a huge surge in kind of front country trails, the John Wayne Pioneer Trail, the I-90 Trail, the Centennial Trail up by our house, the White Horse Trail up by our house. So there's been a lot more of that. Money's kind of gotten redirected, I think, over to some of the places where people can get to easily and use them year-round instead of for 2 months, 3 months in the summertime.
How do you feel about that?
Well, I'm a little torn about it because the maintenance of trails, and we can just walking up here, you can see there's logs and they're big and they don't just remove themselves on their own.
Right.
And there's horse trails really suffered a lot. And if you can't get horses up the trail and pack in crews to stay for, long periods of time to do the work,
Right.
you're going to start losing those trails.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we had huge floods in 2003 and then again in 2006 that took out trail bridges, took out trails, and some of those have not been replaced at all yet. And those are kind of key, some of those are very key components to kind of the backbone of the trail system for where you could do loops, you could get in to do maintenance on the PCT by hiking 7 miles instead of 28 from the shortest direction.
Yeah.
And so that's caused suffering along the Pacific Crest Trail, particularly near Glacier Peak.
I see.
Multiple years. Nice day for it.
Yeah, exactly. We're trying to hike the whole trail, so we can't clean off every boardwalk. But
You got a ways to go. You going up to Goldmire?
No, we're not going that far. That'd be cool though.
Dingford?
We're probably just gonna go to Dingford. Maybe
Yeah.
hike up a little bit further, but we'll see. We'll probably see you again.
Yeah, probably.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, see you.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
We've been talking about this clay
It's cool.
and that clay.
It's like you're still the boss, Gary. You're coming through and they're genuflecting for you as you go by. Did you have a point in your career where you were out as the trail crew boss and that sort of thing for a few years?
Yeah, I did. For a while at Chelan and then at Darrington.
Uh-huh. And when you were the boss, you were using old world techniques. Like, I can't imagine maintaining a trail is pretty old fashioned as I visualize it. Is that still the case?
A lot of it now, it's the same as it was probably in 1930.
Yeah, yeah. And it's maintenance. I can't imagine there's major initiatives or plans to create brand new trails, or is that a wrong assumption?
Yeah, there is to create some new trails. Mostly they would, things I can think of would be ways to make the existing system more usable.
Yeah.
Or to reduce maintenance. We've done some where we've been able to combine trailheads into one, so you have one trailhead to maintain instead of two.
I see.
Things like that.
And occasionally there's a geologist who will say, "Oh yeah, Gary Paull, I remember him. He helped me came up with a permit for such and such." Are there some geologists that pop in your mind that you collaborated with over the years?
Well, let's see, there would be Basil
Okay.
Tikoff.
Yeah.
He may or may not remember, but he was doing a project on the in the Twin Sisters Dunite, and I helped him get a permit for that.
Small world.
Since Steve Malone at the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network,
Okay.
worked with him to get a the first seismometer up on Glacier Peak,
Okay.
and was working with Ben Pock at the
Oh, wow.
Cascade Volcano Observatory to get more seismometers put up there, which hasn't happened yet, but getting closer.
He's a former student of Central Washington
I
University.
saw that.
That's cool. Was it a struggle to create the Alpine Lakes Wilderness? Were there major opponents to that idea? What recipe was needed to create that beautiful set of land?
Well, it was at the time, it was very contentious, and I think the national park was contentious in the mid 60s. There were, 3 instant wilderness areas when the act passed in 1964, Mount Adams, Goat Rock, and Glacier Peak. And so beyond that, there wasn't much as far as protected areas.
Okay.
And a lot of alpine lakes, which happened after North Cascade Park, was checkerboard. So it's part of the land grant. And there was,
Sure.
oh boy, what's the number? I want to say 90,000 acres of private land owned by Weyerhaeuser, what was it, Pack River Company, and probably some others I'm not thinking of right now. And the Wilderness Act, or the Alpine Lakes Act, was unique in that it took all that stuff and directed the Forest Service to acquire all that. And that process took 20 years to acquire it. And there's probably still some little pieces here and there which are being swapped in various different land exchanges.
Was the act passed in the 60s?
July 1976.
76, and we're into the mid 90s, and we're still trying to acquire some of the land.
I think that was the last piece was acquired in the, I want to say the mid 90s.
Okay.
And then it was expanded here, and I think it passed in 2014.
So why was it contentious?
Timber interests being big. Timber companies were very afraid what was going to happen to the timber supply, mining, and a lot of that was concentrated over by the Ingalls, on the edge of the Ingalls at Van Epps Pass, and in the upper Middle Fork Snoqualmie here. And that was the fear that those would all be set aside forever and not available. Big economic concerns, job losses, and all that. And that it was a big deal. I mean, there were congressional field hearings out here on that proposal. So you had like 8 congressmen or so from across the country that came to Seattle. They went to Wenatchee and listened to people's ideas about what should happen.
So
There
why
were a
was
few-
why was it successful ultimately to create that wilderness area?
Well, you had enough congressional support to do it, and actually the administration at the time, which was Gerald Ford was the president at the time, they did not support it. And Washington had a Republican governor, Dan Evans, and the book I showed you back there, which he took that in for a 15-minute meeting with Gerald Ford. And the 15-minute meeting, I don't know, it went for an hour or more.
Yeah.
And Ford had to see every picture and wound up supporting it and signed the legislation.
Wow.
So yeah, the power of pictures.
The power of pictures, isn't that something? All right, well, we got some batholith here for
We
sure.
certainly do.
Let's pause for just a sec.
Yeah, you got to look at that. Ooh. Microblaster. Little holes.
That's you guys.
Yeah, those little holes. It's a cute little drill, and there's a little pipe you poke down in there, and there's a shotgun shell basically that you set off. It cracks the rock. It's pretty cool. They forgot something though.
Oh, those two guys will take care of it this morning.
They better.
Yeah. You'll be looking carefully on the way back.
Yeah, so this is part of the relocation. That trail used to be down there in that.
Okay, so just using this example. So you have a trail down through here in that, and at what point and who decides, okay, well, we don't want that trail down there anymore. We want us to put this trail up through here. What's the, were you involved in that, or what's the context? How does that work?
I was involved with one. I think this is the second one.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's kind of like difficulty of maintenance, the fact that that slide down there is still moving. And yeah, you know, it's great. If you can put trail on bedrock, it's going to stay. So it's more likely to stay up here higher on the hillside above that clay.
So that was probably known for many, many years. This trail just isn't working down here in this blue clay.
It worked for a while until it didn't.
Yeah.
And I can't remember what year that was, but
Okay.
basically the river got to a point where it cut away the toe just enough that it just all of a sudden set it off, and it just started moving.
Okay, so I'm curious. So there's a big washout, for lack of a better term, of the trail down there, and then how quickly is a crew up here? You know, I mean, there's whole rounds of approval and meetings and everything else. Is it 5 years later, 10 years later before you start working on it up here, or quicker than that generally?
Probably initially it was 3 to 5, and I'm not sure about this section we're on here, how long that took. 'Cause I think this just got finished, like, I want to say last year or maybe the year before.
Oh wow! Okay.
So this is real new here.
And speaking of that, so just driving up the middle fork of the Snoqualmie as we did, you suggested this place because you hadn't seen this with all these recent.
With this.
Okay.
Yeah. Those pullouts that we saw driving up here, the Oxbow Loop, the Garfield Ledges, the Camp Brown, Pratt Bar, those are all new just in the last 5 or 6 years, and a lot of it in the last probably 4 years, I'd say.
And who's the engine for that work? Is it Forest Service, or is it these other organizations you're talking about?
It's the Forest Service working with the DNR, working with the partners. I mean, it's very much a group effort with the Mountains of Sound Greenway and the Mid Fork folks. Big effort. But when it all comes together, you can do amazing things.
Oh, it's hopeful, isn't it? I mean,
it's very hopeful. I mean, I know that one of the Mountains of Sound Greenway guys I was talking to was, it goes from basically Ellensburg over to to Seattle, really. Yeah. And I was trying to figure out if there's a way that they could turn that and then just go north up to Canada, because they have ways of bringing in the cash that here that are not available as much in other places. But it's been a huge boom for here, which is great because it's the closest valley to Seattle.
Yeah.
And of course, there's other stuff. They've fixed up Mount Si. They've the Rattlesnake Ledges, the Rattlesnake Mountain across the river.
Yes.
Other side of North Bend.
Yeah.
That's all been new. I remember Rattlesnake from years ago, and there was kind of, you follow the flags, maybe kind of sort of along the top.
Oh wow.
And now it's well signed, and people are walking that all the time. Cougar Mountain, Tiger Mountain over here. It's like that was kind of my backyard. There was nothing there, and now that's like just this, where you go after work to take a walk. Once you build it, you got to keep fixing it.
Right. Oh yeah. So the access to the old Snoqualmie batholith, which is, I don't know, 23 million to 17 million years old, something like that. Old ghost volcano magma chamber in the Cascades. Pretty good. All right, Gary, that was a crafty move on my part to catch my breath. All right, here we go. This is a blast. Thank you.
Yeah, they did do that. They blasted.
Oh. Well, this isn't your micro tool. What are they using? Just a big
Well,
old rock saw?
here's a bigger, couple bigger drill holes over here.
Okay.
It's a nice phenocryst.
So who is doing this actual work? You think it's Forest Service, or is it one of these other organizations?
I think, well, this kind of work, I think they had a contractor, but
I see.
I'll have to ask Alex there
Yeah.
on the way back.
Yeah. Wow.
Or like a gabbro, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, you remember Mike Eddy from the programs. He just casually tossed out one time. I said, "You're going to be in the North Cascades your whole career, Mike?" He said, "I don't know. I got these ways to get these really nice dates on things. Maybe I'll start dealing with the Snoqualmie Bass."
Oh, okay.
I'm like, okay. That'd be fun.
Yeah, 'cause I don't know. I mean, this thing over here,
Uh-huh.
Garfield, may be the part of the old volcano that hasn't quite ghosted yet.
Well, yes. I mean, whether it's Mike Eddy or maybe the work is already there and the precision is there, just to connect the dots between some plutons and some volcanics over here would be fun. And it's not clear in my head yet if that's been worked out. Boy, how have I not been here before? Well, you're saying the trail wasn't even really here 5 years ago, I guess.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I haven't out in this situation.
Yeah, I'm saying it was flat, but except for this part here, which is,
Oh, this is great.
hoping we'll just get up to the top up here and
Yeah,
get a bit more of a view.
delightful. Well, now I'm looking at all the handiwork here of the trail.
Yeah, this is a lot of work. There's a big rock wall right down here, all hand placed.
Oh yeah,
You probably see it better from over here.
it's amazing what you don't notice unless you're looking.
Yeah, they're moving some big rocks there.
Let me come around your shoulder here. Yeah.
What do you think? Is this your first time out here since you did the reroute?
That's the first, I think the last time I was out here was with you and Brian.
Seriously?
When was that? I think it's a couple weeks before I retired, I think. And we went up to ledges and
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, that's
wandered
fun.
around.
Nice. Yeah, it's been a work in progress. It's such a crazy, steep, rocky area.
When did this get finished?
We finished it last year. We started construction last year and we finished it last year.
Is
in
Oregon
October.
Woods involved?
Yeah, Oregon Woods did the
Heavy stuff?
clearing, grubbing, excavation. You know, we kind of flubbed up on our contract specs a little bit, and so they left a decent amount of like rock outcroppings, and so we actually worked on it for like a month, over a month and a half. And we didn't have any blasting capabilities.
You had a microblaster though.
We had a microblaster, we had a rock saw, and we actually used expanding grout, which worked really well.
Really?
Yeah, that was actually pretty cool. And all of the stuff worked well in concert. I don't know if I have like a best tool. Maybe it was the expanding grout, honestly.
Bridget, tried that yet?
I think Sky Cove was just using it. Yeah, Bam Bam would be like, "What are you guys doing?"
Blow it up.
Yeah, no, it was fun. We learned a lot. I didn't think you could put a trail through terrain like this. And Kathy was like,
Sure.
"No problem." Right on.
So what's in your targets for this summer? Do you have a couple specific trail sections or something you're going to work on?
Well, for here, like we're looking at how to expand this switchback corner a little bit to
Oh.
make it more favorable for stock.
Uh-huh.
And there are some more rock outcroppings up here where we'd like to improve the clearing limits on, just mostly for pack stock. Everything's for pack stock
Yeah.
down there as well. But we ran out of time. And
Sure.
we were exhausted by the end of last season.
Yeah.
It's held up really well through a first winter. I'm really surprised, to be honest.
Yeah,
I haven't seen the rest of it, but
impressive rock walls up here.
I know. pretty tall rock walls for sure. Yeah, they used a lot of rocks.
Who built those? Is that
That was the
contractor?
contractor. Yeah.
So they lift some of those with the excavator?
They didn't have an excavator.
They didn't have an
They
excavator.
did this entire thing by hand.
They did.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. It was impressive. You know, we couldn't be too disappointed with the way they left it, because they really did some good work. You know?
Was Bruce?
And then hopefully construct that next year. Yeah. So that's all we're doing this year.
That's it? Oh.
That's all Great American Outdoors Act funding.
I see. Well, it makes sense. Just the number of cars at these trailheads, even
Yeah.
compared to 2 years ago, feels like
Yeah.
double. I don't know what the numbers
we-
say, but
We did have a 50% increase in usage in 2020, and fortunately it leveled out last year.
yeah.
Yeah, because we keep track of all the numbers
Sure.
on our trails here. So that was pretty definitively answered that like the COVID bump actually subsided last year. So we'll see what this year brings.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
Right.
yeah, but we're always working on this trail. There's always something going on. But
Wow.
luckily this hasn't fallen apart. So
No,
pretty happy
great
about
job.
that.
Great job. Well, it's great running into you guys.
Yeah, you
Thank you.
guys. Good to see you. Yeah, don't be a stranger, Gary. I saw your email about like potential projects and stuff.
So those are deposited. Then following that, when you had the Puget Lobe over kind of in this area here, which is the lowland, these are the mountains, the colors.
Yep.
The QVGL,
Sure.
which is that's lacustrine sediments deposited on top of the alpine glacial till
Okay.
on the valley walls.
So where did we park on this map?
We parked right up here at near the confluence of the Taylor River
Okay.
and the Snoqualmie River.
Got
And
it.
there's the brown, which is the Mount Garfield volcanics, and pretty much completely surrounded by the pink, which is Snoqualmie batholith.
Okay.
And I think this guy here, what did I write down? That's the kind of a gabbro phase of the Snoqualmie batholith.
Oh, the Snoqualmie, not Mount Si. That
Right.
Mount Si. is
Mount
a
Mount Si's right over here, and then all this dark color is, I think all of it's all the western melange belt, except for that. There's a little tiny piece up on Mount Garfield that's looks like it's eastern melange.
Sounds like there's three major stories from my point of view. There's like the exotic terrain stuff, that's the western melange, the dark gray. Then there's the ghost volcano story with all the pink, and then there's the Puget Lobe ice on the, sitting over here above I-5 essentially and tapering, right?
Yeah, so all that's all Puget Lobe
Mm-hmm.
stuff, with a few little pieces of the melange sticking out.
Yeah. Well, there's progress to make here. I don't have it. I don't know if you have it. I don't have it.
I don't have it.
Intriguing area though, and not that far away from the usual places, so I need to come back.
Close to home, Nick.
Close to home. No excuse. Thank you.
I got one question for you while
yeah.
that's going.
Sure.
Did you have any idea what you were doing when you started with that live streaming?
No.
Because I think at one point you were saying that you noticed on the live chat, here's all these people, they're all saying hi to each other.
Yeah,
I mean, that community is just absolutely incredible. What
it is.
developed around there.
Yeah.
Can't believe it.
So none of these things are staged, just in case you're wondering. Total accident that Gary ran into his former colleague with the Forest Service. Appreciate you joining us today. Hope you enjoyed this different kind of a video. Gary has been a regular viewer of many of the live streams. Many of you recognize him as Backcountry Gary Paull. But I wanted to learn from Gary about a little bit of the history of some of this trail use. in Washington. Thank you. I love you. And goodbye.